Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Interesting series against the Atlanta Braves. I apologize for not getting up a post-game podcast for Game 1 and Game 2. Very busy weekend for me, so what I decided to do was let's throw this series together and make one full podcast about it. The Phillies lose 2 of 3, and the way that the last game ended, very exciting with the relay from Roman Quinn to Didi Gregorius to Andrew Knapp, who makes an awesome play to get out Dansby Swanson at the home plate, right? At home plate. It was awesome. It has this cool, energized vibe to it, but let's be realistic. The Philadelphia Phillies couldn't be any closer to blowing another game in Game 3 of this series. You can't get any tighter of a situation of not blowing the game. This is a huge issue. And when we look at the trades that the Phillies made, it's so desperate. I get that you have to do something because you put your organization in such a terrible spot where you have to do something about it. But I'll be honest with you, you're just putting Band-Aids, really horrible Band-Aids that fall off instantly on this bullpen, and that's what you did, and you gave up some pieces. Not that the pieces that they gave up, I'm claiming is going to be special and they're going to be unique, but I will say it makes no sense to me. For example, this Addison Russ move, right? 25-year-old, and he's been pounding strikeouts in the minors. The Yankees are going to thrive with this guy. Addison Russ was traded for Hale, right? The Yankees got rid of Hale, who was leaving the organization anyway, and got a 25-year-old pitcher who's been thriving in the minors. Do you see the difference here? The Phillies picked up someone who you don't really know what you're going to get at all, while you have the Phillies acquiring some random journeyman who might not work. That's where I have the problem. Now, they get rid of Nick Pivetta, and they get rid of Seabold as well, and they end up picking up Hembree, Workman, and Hale. So they had to do something, but they put themselves in this position where they needed to give up assets just to get some journeymen in return. And to this point, it doesn't seem like Workman is going to be a big help. He had an awful Game 3 in this series and got lucky because of the relay. And then you had him blow the game in the second game. It was ridiculous. Now, we'll get into all of them. We'll start with Game 1. Before we do, this episode is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. And with over 20 years of experience in the solar industry, they are home to your solar experts. Their solar program helps eliminate your electric bill completely, and they offer flexible financing solutions, such as $0 down. They will make sure that you receive all the state and federal incentives available for switching to solar. Make sure you check out their information. It is in the description. So Game 1 of this series, it was one of those games. No doubt, in baseball, there's those games where the team gets rocked, your pitcher can't really do much. It just sucks that the pitcher in this case is Aaron Nola, and we understand you got to pick up those wins when Zack Wheeler and Aaron Nola's on the bump because you don't really know what you're going to get from the other handful of starters. Now, Aaron Nola got absolutely destroyed, one of his worst outings, although he's been putting it together lately, so it's hard for me to really rip him into shreds, but in this game, and because of the 60-game season, it's a shortened season, you need your top guy to perform every time he's on the mound. He only gave you 2 2/3 and allowed 4 earned runs. Now, the way that I will address this with Aaron Nola is, let me see his next start. Because if his next start is similar to the last 2, well, then I'll go, okay, it was just one of those games for him. If he puts together another bad outing where, say, he's not going to go 2 2/3 again, let's hope not. Let's say he goes 5. Well, then it's all right. Hold on a second. We need to get Aaron Nola back on track. We need the real Aaron Nola. So I will base Aaron Nola after next performance. This could just be a fluke. It could just be one of those games for him. Let me see how he responds from this type of adversity, because there's no doubt the nasty, nasty off-speed pitches and his fastball has been electric over the last couple starts. Specifically, though, let's get to that changeup. That changeup has been utilized beautifully and way more effective this season, but not in this one. And they just got blown out at that time. Remember, they were coming off of that brutal 2-game series against the Blue Jays, that doubleheader where they blew games because of the bullpen in both of them. Oh, awful. Awful. So you added that loss after a handful of losses. That's no way to do it. Now we go to game 2. Oh, by the way, in that bullpen, Reggie McClain and Cole Irvin after Aaron Nola. Oh, did they get murdered? They got absolutely destroyed. Reggie McClain. How many times are we going to throw Reggie McClain out there? Same with Cole Irvin. Now, luckily, they started to move pieces around. How did I just let it fly over me that Nick Pivetta is no longer in this organization? Get the hell out of here, baby. Get to Boston. Go suck it up in Boston. You know how sometimes I search Gabe Kapler on Twitter late night? Do you know how many times I'm going to start searching Nick Pivetta after some of his performances? Now, this year, they're such a mess anyway that I don't even know how tuned in these Boston Red Sox fans are, but I'm going to wait for the season where the Red Sox have a bit more hype, and here comes Nick Pivetta, and they're going to be talking about, oh, look at his fastball, oh, look at what he can do, oh, look at his stuff that he just needs to figure out. But with the Phillies' luck, I don't think it's going to be how this goes, because I think Nick Pivetta is that bad of a baseball player. But with the Phillies' luck, he'll end up being something special in Boston, and we're going to have to witness it. Now, that reminds me, Sixto Sanchez getting his first MLB start, 100 miles per hour, some nasty movement on some pitches. Uh-oh, here we go. Let's go, Matt Glenjack. You might have to figure this thing out pretty damn soon, even though we all understand you're not going to. Sixto Sanchez's movement, it's incredible. Incredible stuff. I couldn't even watch it. Here I am. I'm putting the game on MLB TV, and I'm tuning in. I'm like, no, this is awful. I can't watch this kid do it. Now, it wasn't as if he had 8 shutout innings, but I'll tell you what, he showed you something really solid in that repertoire of his. Let's get to game 2. Zack Wheeler put on one hell of a performance. He was great. The Phillies took a 4-0 lead. Keep in mind here, the common theme throughout these games, the Phillies have a lead, and then the Phillies end up losing, right? Which is what happens when you have one of the worst bullpens ever created in the history of Major League Baseball as a whole entire league. But they had a 4-0 lead in game 2. Bryce Harper hit a 470-foot dagger. This thing was crushed. You had JT get an RBI. You had Andrew McCutchen hit a home run as well. The Phillies were up 4-0. Now, Zack Wheeler, throughout that point of the game, was throwing an absolute gem. He was spectacular. I knew that Zack Wheeler was a good pitcher, and I expected him to do great things here. But I'll tell you what, through the first handful of starts for him, I'm super impressed. I knew what he could bring to the table, but throughout his tenure with the Mets, there were some issues with some starts, and there were some injury issues as well. Maybe that played a role, but man, what he has provided so far, it's been really awesome. Late in the game, though, he did allow a 2-run home run, which did cut the lead in half. So it's a 4-2 lead, and now you have to result by going into your bullpen. And in the bullpen, Hector Neris comes in. By the way, the finishing stat line for Zack Wheeler in that game, 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, and 8 strikeouts. Austin Riley was the one to hit the homer off Wheeler. But Hector Neris had to come in. And you can question Joe Girardi. Why go with Hector Neris in that scenario? He hasn't been very strong when it comes to the 9th inning and save opportunities. Why go with him in the 8th to be more of that setup man? And I don't like him too much as a closer. I just support him as a closer because if you date back to last season, he did good in that role. Even though he's thrown into that role where I don't think that's his number one spot, he did okay there. So after you see him struggle a couple times in the 9th as the save guy, you're going to need to utilize Hector Neris. It's not like Hector Neris is never going to be in a game, so you're going to have to use him. I don't mind Joe Girardi going with him as the 8th inning guy in this scenario. I know a lot of people are ripping Joe Girardi for it, but if you know you're going to need to use him, and you know you got some arms that will now be in the mix as well, and you understand that the 9th inning is no longer Hector's spot, where else are you going to use him? That eighth inning is more likely a time where you are going to utilize him, right? So I was okay with it, although Hector Neris blew up completely. And now I question when he's going to be utilized moving forward because he struggled in the eighth inning as well. But before this, you didn't know that he was going to have an abysmal performance. Now you've seen it. Now I question when to use him. But before this, I totally understood it. 1/3 of an inning, 2 hits, 3 earned runs, a walk. It was bad. And then here comes Workman, who I'm not a big fan of at all. He was getting shelled, and then they end up getting walked off. They end up getting walked off by the Braves after having a 4-0 lead, and you're talking about the last couple innings. Stop me if you heard that before. It's a true disgrace. It really is. Duvall ends up hitting the walk-off. Here's the thing. It was actually 5-4 at one point, and Roman Quinn, who showed off his speed, was able to lay a bunt down. He was able to beat it out, and that allowed the inning to stay alive a bit, right? Get some momentum. Bryce Harper ends up hitting a sac fly, which scores a run to make it 5-5. So they were actually down 5-4, and they tied it up 5-5, and that's when Workman came in, and the rest is history. But the Phillies did fight back in that scenario, and you saw what Roman Quinn can bring speed-wise. And Roman Quinn, he's just so interesting to me because I do see the speed, right? You'd be dumb to not see what type of speed he has out there on the diamond, but then you relate it to what he does defensively, and he makes these weird miscues defensively. He's just a wonky player, but the speed is game-changing, so how much do you value that compared to some of the other mistakes that he makes? And I guess you can bring up the same discussion in Alec Bohm, because what he did in that third game, 3 hits, his first home run of his career, also getting a walk, so on base 4 times, but having some miscues in the field is showing every single game. It's funny, about I don't know how many games ago or so, I mentioned on Twitter that Alec Bohm needs to get better defensively. I have Wichita State fans in my mentions freaking out. You know nothing. This guy was a stud in college. I'm like, if you know anything about Alec Bohm as a prospect, you know that he has major flaws defensively. Well, in the third game of this series, when the Phillies were up, how about this? The Phillies were up and had a big lead. As Zac Eflin's on the mound, there's a ground ball that goes right over his glove. He should be able to make that play. A couple plays defensively at third base he should have made, and it actually costed the Phillies some runs. He has an issue at third base, and you hear about bad defenders all the time. This touches a new level. But when you get 3 hits, when you hit a dinger, when you're walking as well, he's very special at the plate right now. So clearly you keep him in. But I saw this trending a bit after Alec Bohm had some miscues in the field. How many DHs does this Phillies team have? How many players do they have that are bad at fielding, but they can hit the baseball? You know, it does seem like a lot. Like Andrew McCutchen out in left field. He's no longer what he was. He doesn't cover as much as he once did. He DHs. Rhys Hoskins, he's not a great first baseman. Remember when he played in left field? Oh, Alec Bohm is so much worse than that. There's going to be a time if they sign JT where he is going to be the DH. Alec Bohm can be the DH. Jay Bruce, DH. It's like this team is just filled with DHs who are not the best defenders. It's going to be interesting as they continue to move forward here, but love Alec Bohm. Support for Sports Talk with Broads is brought to you by Manscaped, who is best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. You want to make sure that downstairs everything is fine. You want to make sure if you're going out with your significant other or you're meeting someone at the bar that downstairs is smooth, clean, and you didn't miss any spots and you don't cut yourself. You don't have to worry about that with the Lawnmower 3.0 because of the advanced skin-safe technology with the ceramic blade, which makes sure you do not cut yourself at all. There's LED lights, so you make sure that you don't miss any spots. You can do it in the shower as well. The 7,000 RPM motor, it was upgraded to that, which has the quiet stroke technology. If you're listening to me speak about this right now, you need to experience this yourself, and you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code BROD at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code BROD at manscaped.com. Your balls will thank you. trim that junk of yours. All right, so here's how Game 3 played out. The Phillies had a couple chances to blow the game wide open. And the biggest spot, which annoyed me, was in the fourth inning. Bases loaded, 0 outs. And the bottom of your lineup got the bases loaded. So what that means is Andrew McCutchen, Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto. These are the fellas up at the plate with bases loaded, 0 outs, and all they do is get one stinking run because of McCutchen. Now, I will say that Bryce Harper got screwed early in his AB. There was clearly a ball that was way outside of the strike zone. The umpire called it a strike, and that changes the entire at-bat, right? Because it was 1-1, and it should have been 2-0, and that's a hitter's count for Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper had a tough day at the office, although he had that, 109 exit velocity smack to the right field side where the second baseman made a beautiful play. It should have been a hit. He had a tougher night tonight, but it's Bryce Harper, and he's been magnificent, right? So we understand that. But he should have been able to make that happen. He should have been able to crush that ball and an opportunity for the Phillies to really blow the game wide open. Rhys Hoskins looking, striking out, looking, and JT popping up. We need those guys to really blow the game wide open. That's the time. Do it. They scored one stinking run. And then now you have another opportunity with 2 outs, bases loaded for McCutchen. And he did deliver. He was the one to help score the 1 run in that fourth. But he has another chance with bases juiced, and they weren't able to execute once again. So that's a problem with the Phillies. You got to do it. We talk about this lineup all the time and how powerful this offense can be. Well, let's blow them away. Right? Boom, though. That home run was awesome. Speaking of home runs, Rhys Hoskins hit his second of the year. It looks like he's starting to warm up. I've been preaching him lately, going, look, he's definitely getting his timing back, looking at his exit velocity, looking at how he's getting the ball at the prime of the bat, getting the pop, squaring it up. You're seeing it, and now he's starting to hit home runs again, which is great. And Dede, this line drive that he scorched out to right field, that thing was murdered. It was a line drive just soaring out to right field. And then they show the graphic that he doesn't have 1 home run to left field in his entire career. Isn't that almost impossible? Don't you think that somehow, some way, that would happen by accident to a guy like Didi Gregorius? He pulls every single home run that he ever hits. You don't accidentally hit it to left field. You don't accidentally hit it to straightaway center. Sometimes you would think it would happen by mistake, and yet it never happened to Didi Gregorius. It's just insanity to process. But in that scenario, this line drive was epic. I mean, that thing was just scorched out of the ballpark. Love me some Didi Gregorius. Absolutely. Now let's talk about the bullpen. Zac Eflin, by the way, not enough out of him. And I feel like we're starting to get a lot of not enoughs out of him. And I mentioned before how his strikeouts have been going up, but it's not like that's been translating to great baseball games. Well, in this game, he was just average. I don't even know if average is the word. He got into some trouble. He allowed some runs as soon as the Phillies scored their runs. But I will say, it's not like he had much help defensively because I believe Alec Bohm made a couple mistakes. And A-Rod was trying to give Alec Bohm the benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, that's because the infield was moved in. Now, what are you talking about, dude? He should have been able to make that play. It's simple. I know you don't want to throw anyone under the bus. No. He should have made the play. He's young. He'll get better. I don't know how good he'll eventually get at that position. My guess is he won't be there very long. He's not your third baseman of the future because you can't live like that and succeed like that because it will cost you runs many times. Now, I remember specifically Jake Arrieta, where there was a ball that he should have made. He should have made the ground ball up the ground out, got out of the inning. Plenty of times where he's made that mistake. In this game as well, you can't live like that. So it's not like Zac Eflin had help defensively at times, but still, it's not like he was strong enough by any means in this outing. So after Zac Eflin, Hembree came in, awesome, phenomenal, loved his stuff, electric, seemed cool, seemed calm, seemed like he was ready for the moment. Tommy Hunter came in the 8th and bang, bang, bang. Whoa, that's Tommy Hunter? What year? Because it ain't 2020. What Tommy Hunter was that? He was awesome in the 8th. And what do you know? Workman in the 9th struggles yet again. And he had one good season in his career, and the others were your high 3 ERA, 4 ERA, 5 ERA type pitcher. He had one good season under 2 ERA, and that's what people expect him to be. I don't. That's the outlier. That's the one that does stand out compared to the others. I'll look at his other years of work and value that because I've seen that more than the sub-2 ERA, and he is just miserable out there. Seriously, think about what I'm saying. He got lucky because Freddie Freeman hits one into the gap. It was a really great hit. I thought Swanson was going to score without a doubt. Here he comes flying around third base. And Roman Quinn to Didi Gregorius to Andrew Knapp. And Andrew Knapp made a good play. The ball was thrown towards the front of the plate. He gets it. There's probably Braves fans that want it to be a blocked plate, but the nature of the throw took him there. It's almost as if when the ball came, they bang, bang, had the play at home plate, and it happened at the same exact time. I wouldn't go with blocking the plate in that scenario. That's not the same as getting the ball and blocking it as the runner is coming like the old days. It was him going for the ball that led him in that direction, and that's why the tag was made then. Tough tag for sure, but all around great relay by the fellas. We yell about fundamentals all the time, and look at that. Although it wasn't like it was a great throw to home. Andrew Knapp might have bailed out the team there because if it got by him or Andrew Knapp couldn't even get to that spot, then we would probably be looking at that relay totally different. But here's reality. They did execute it. They were able to win, and it stopped the bleeding. You had to find a way to stop the bleeding, and they did. I know they're talking about, I think it was Andrew Knapp after the game, when you look back at a season, this could be the game that really changed the momentum. I think we should hold on a second because this team was about 0.1 second away from blowing another game after having a nice lead, and it's the common theme. I get it. You feel great. You have Monday off. It was an exciting, emotional win because it came down to the last play. Let's not get you crazy here. The bullpen is still a problem, and I don't really like what they did with the bullpen. I like Hembree. I get that you have to do something because it was the worst bullpen I've ever seen in the majors in the history of baseball. But that's because you put yourself in that position, and now you're trying to find a really bad Band-Aid. Now you're just trying to figure out what guys we can throw in here to save this season, but we're hurting us longer term in the process. And shame on the front office for going down that road. Once again, I'm not claiming that who they let up is some special elite talent, but let's just use the philosophy here of what they're doing. They're giving up on a 25-year-old Addison Russ who has a killer arm, who could really throw the baseball, and who's been striking guys out in Double-A for some journeyman you don't really know what you're going to get at all, who is leaving the organization anyway. How does that make sense, right? You only do that because you're so desperate, and you're only so desperate because you failed to address the bullpen like a regular franchise would before everything started. The philosophy is flawed as hell, but I get why they had to do it because we're screaming at them, figure it the hell out. But I feel like they're hurting themselves more long-term just to find a way to throw on some terrible Band-Aid, and that's reality. So let's see how they bounce back in their next series. They did salvage this one, but I'm not all woohoo about this team right now. They would have blown this game like big time, big time. They were so close to blowing this game, and a miracle happened. That's what happened, a miracle. A miracle happened. Thank you all so much for listening, and I will see you next time.